The battle was reaching its most intense point. The enemy's forces had been overwhelming, and humanity was on the brink of annihilation. The few remaining human ships had barely held their own against the relentless onslaught. But just as all hope seemed lost, something unexpected happened. Out of nowhere, a fleet of advanced ships emerged from the depths of space, cutting through the enemy lines with precision and power like nothing the aliens had ever seen. Elias, who had been fighting with his crew for days, watched in disbelief as these new ships tore through the alien forces, giving humanity a sliver of hope. The tide of battle was beginning to shift. Elias could hardly comprehend what was happening. His mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. These ships, sleek and intimidating, were unlike anything he or any of his fellow soldiers had ever encountered. They were equipped with weapons of unimaginable power, and their technology was far more advanced than anything humanity had developed. The enemy forces, caught off guard by this sudden assault, faltered. For the first time in a long while, Elias saw the aliens retreating, their once imposing armada scattering in disarray. Despite their newfound advantage, the battle was far from over. The aliens, furious at being pushed back, retaliated with all their might. Their counterattack was swift and brutal, but the new human fleet was relentless. Elias and his crew watched in awe as these ships, piloted by humans they had never met before, fought with a fierceness and precision that even the enemy could not match. As the battle raged on, Elias began to make contact with the leader of this mysterious fleet, a woman named Commander Vira. Her voice crackled through the comms, steady and commanding despite the chaos of the battle around her. She explained that these ships had been built by a faction of humans who had been exiled long ago, individuals who had pushed the boundaries of technology and warfare. These exiled humans had created powerful new ships, hidden away for years, waiting for the right moment to return and turn the tide of the war. Elias felt a surge of gratitude mixed with awe as he listened to Vira's story. These were the humans who had been exiled for creating dangerous technologies that could change the course of the war. Their existence had been a well-kept secret for years. Now, they were humanity's last hope. But Elias couldn't help but wonder why these humans had stayed hidden for so long. Why hadn't they joined the fight earlier? And what would happen if the aliens learned the truth about their advanced ships? As the battle continued, Elias worked closely with Commander Vira to strategize the next move. The enemy was growing desperate, and the humans were gaining ground. But just as victory seemed within their grasp, something unexpected happened. The aliens, unwilling to accept defeat, unleashed their ultimate weapon, a massive warship that dwarfed anything humanity had ever faced. This warship, with its towering structure and devastating weaponry, was capable of wiping out entire fleets with a single shot. It was the final piece of their strategy, and it was heading straight for the human fleet. Elias could feel the tension in the air as the massive warship came into view. The rest of the alien fleet had been shattered, but this new threat was something entirely different. The enemy's ultimate weapon was nearly unstoppable. With its enormous guns aimed directly at the human fleet, Elias knew that the next few moments would decide everything. If they couldn't stop this warship, the human fleet would be obliterated, and humanity's last hope would be lost. Desperation set in as the crew scrambled to come up with a plan. Commander Vira was calm, but Elias could hear the uncertainty in her voice as she gave orders. They didn't have the firepower to take down the massive warship with their current weapons. The new human fleet was powerful, but it was not invincible. The odds were stacked against them, and Elias couldn't help but wonder if they had already done all they could. If they failed here, it would be the end of everything they had fought for. But just as Elias was about to give in to despair, Vera's voice came through the comms again. "There's one last thing we can try," she said. "It's a long shot, but it's our only chance." Elias's heart raced as he listened intently. Vera explained a plan that would require the human fleet to make a final desperate push toward the warship. They would need to sacrifice their remaining ships in a coordinated strike, distracting the enemy long enough for a small team to board the warship and destroy it from within. It was a suicide mission, but it was their only hope. Without hesitation, Elias knew what had to be done. He and Vera made the decision together. The remaining ships would create a diversion, drawing the enemy's attention while the boarding team made their move. It was risky, and the chances of survival were slim, but it was the only shot they had. As the human fleet moved into position, Elias felt the weight of the decision settle on his shoulders. The fate of humanity rested on the outcome of this battle. If they succeeded, they would take down the warship, but if they failed, everything would be lost. The boarding team, made up of the most skilled soldiers from both the human fleet and Vera's group, prepared to board the warship. They had one chance to succeed, and there was no turning back now. The moment they stepped onto the enemy ship, they would be in enemy territory, and their mission would either save humanity or end it all. Elias watched as the human ships engaged the alien warship, drawing its fire away from the boarding team. The chaos of the battle intensified as the final strike was made. The small group of soldiers made their way toward the heart of the enemy ship, navigating through narrow corridors and avoiding enemy patrols. Every step was filled with danger, but they had come too far to turn back now. The countdown was on. The moment the soldiers reached the warship's core, they would need to plant explosives and escape before the entire ship was destroyed. Elias held his breath as he waited for news. Time seemed to stretch on forever as the team moved deeper into the heart of the enemy vessel. Each second felt like an eternity, and Elias knew that the fate of humanity was hanging by a thread. Finally, the comms crackled to life. The team had made it. The explosives were set. There was no turning back now. As Elias watched from the command deck, he felt a sense of hope he hadn't felt in days. The warship, the alien threat that had loomed over humanity for so long, was about to be destroyed. But even as the countdown began, he couldn't shake the feeling that the final moments of this battle would come at a great cost. The soldiers detonated the explosives, and the massive warship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The shockwave rocked the human fleet, and Elias could feel the force of the explosion even from a distance. The alien forces had been defeated. For a moment, there was silence. Then, as the dust settled, Elias and his crew began to process what had just happened. Humanity had won. They had fought against impossible odds, and they had emerged victorious. But the cost had been high. The lives lost, the sacrifices made. It was a victory, but it felt like the beginning of something far more difficult. With the warship destroyed, the remaining alien forces were scattered. The human fleet, battered and broken, began to regroup. But Elias knew that this was just the first battle in a long war. The fight for humanity's survival was far from over. As the crew celebrated their hard-earned victory, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that something even more dangerous was lurking on the horizon. The enemy had been defeated, but the war was far from over. Humanity had just begun to fight back, and the real challenges lay ahead. In the quiet aftermath of the battle, Elias looked out at the stars, knowing that the fight for humanity's future was only just beginning. But for now, they had won, and that was enough. The galaxy was on the edge of collapse. Humanity, scattered across the far reaches of space, had long been fighting a losing battle against the alien forces that had ravaged their world. The once mighty fleets of human warships were all but destroyed, their remnants scattered in small pockets of resistance. Hope had all but vanished. Every planet that had once been a bastion of human civilization had either fallen or been abandoned, and only a handful of survivors clung to life in the vastness of space. Elias, commander of a small fleet of battered ships, sat in the command chair, staring at the star map flickering before him. His fleet was a shadow of what it once was, old, worn-out ships with little to no supplies left. The war had gone on for years, and there was no end in sight. The alien forces, with their advanced technology and overwhelming numbers, had crushed every attempt to push them back. It was clear now. Humanity was losing the war, and there was little hope left. The comms crackled to life, snapping Elias from his thoughts. The voice on the other end was one he hadn't heard in years. "Commander Vira." "Elias," she said, her tone urgent. "We've received a distress signal from the outskirts of the galaxy. It's human. A survivor fleet. They need our help." Elias blinked, confusion spreading across his face. "A survivor fleet? Are you sure? We've lost contact with nearly everyone. The alien forces have cut us off." "I know," Vera replied. "But this signal, it's from a hidden outpost. They've been in hiding for years, but it's real. I've traced it back to a nearby system. If we don't respond, they'll be lost." Elias felt a spark of hope, but he knew the risks. Responding to this signal meant diverting the last of their forces, which were already dangerously low on fuel and ammunition. But the thought of humanity's last hope being snuffed out in silence was unbearable. "All right," Elias said after a long pause. "Prepare the fleet. We'll go, but we need to move fast. If it's a trap, we'll deal with it," Vera interrupted. "We have to try." With that, Elias made the decision that would change the course of the war. The fleet, though small and battered, would make the journey to the coordinates of the distress signal. As they set course for the unknown, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into a trap. The enemy had been known to use deceptive tactics to lure human forces into vulnerable positions, but they had no choice. If they didn't respond, humanity might never get another chance. The journey was long, and as they approached the coordinates, Elias couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. The stars around them were cold, distant, and unwelcoming. The vastness of space seemed to stretch on forever, a constant reminder of how small and fragile humanity had become. The fleet's ships moved in formation, their once pristine hulls now scarred by years of battle. Each ship was a testament to the endurance of the human spirit, but Elias knew they couldn't last forever. As they neared the outpost's location, a strange silence enveloped the fleet. The usual hum of the engines, the bustle of the crew on the comms, and the chatter of the ships were all eerily absent. The only sound that filled the ship was the soft beeping of the navigation systems. Elias turned to his tactical officer, Lieutenant Mora, who was studying the readout on her console. "We're almost there, sir," Mora said, her voice steady, but Elias could see the worry in her eyes. Then, without warning, the comms came alive. "This is the human outpost. We are under attack. Please, we need help." The voice was frantic, cutting through the static, a cry for help that sent chills down Elias' spine. "They're under attack," he muttered to himself, glancing around at his crew. They had arrived just in time, but was it too late? "We have to go in now." Vira's voice came through the comms, urgent and filled with determination. "Prepare for immediate combat. We can't let them fall." Elias nodded, his heart pounding. He turned to Mora. "Bring the fleet into formation. We need to make sure we're ready for anything. Full speed ahead." As the fleet surged forward, the tension on the bridge was palpable. Every crew member knew what was at stake. They weren't just responding to a distress signal. They were potentially walking into the final fight for humanity's survival. Elias could feel the weight of the decision settling in. There was no turning back now. As they entered the system where the outpost was located, the stars seemed to dim. The blackness of space seemed to press in on them from all sides. Then, without warning, they saw it, an enemy fleet, massive and menacing, surrounding the outpost. The outpost itself was a small, isolated station, hidden away in the depths of the system, its defenses outdated and nearly useless against the alien onslaught. The alien ships were circling the station, attacking it from all sides. It was clear that the outpost stood little chance against this overwhelming force. The human fleet, still a distance away, was outgunned and outnumbered, but Elias knew they had to act fast. If they didn't intervene now, the outpost would be lost, and humanity's last chance for survival would disappear forever. Elias gripped the armrests of his chair as he watched the unfolding battle. The enemy's warships, sleek and deadly, fired massive energy blasts at the outpost. The station's shields flickered, barely holding against the assault. Each strike sent tremors through the ship, rattling the crew as they braced for what was to come. "Prepare for attack," Elias ordered, his voice calm but firm. "We're going in." The fleet moved forward, racing toward the enemy ships. It was a suicide mission, and everyone knew it. But there was no time for hesitation. Elias had made the decision to fight. They would either win this battle or die trying. As the fleet engaged the enemy, chaos erupted around them. The enemy ships retaliated instantly, firing on the human fleet with unrelenting force. The once proud ships of humanity, though damaged, held their ground as they fought back. Energy blasts and laser fire lit up the dark expanse of space as the battle raged on. But just when all seemed lost, something unexpected happened. From the depths of the enemy's formation, a new fleet emerged, human ships. These ships, unlike any Elias had ever seen, were unlike anything he could have imagined. They were sleek, powerful, and impossibly advanced. Their hulls shimmered with a strange metallic glow, and their weapons fired with deadly precision. The sight was surreal. For a moment, Elias thought he was hallucinating. But as the new human fleet surged forward, the aliens began to retreat. The sudden appearance of these unknown ships was enough to send shockwaves through the enemy ranks. The aliens who had once seemed unstoppable were now forced to pull back. "Who are they?" Mora asked, her voice filled with awe. Elias could only stare in disbelief. "I don't know, but they're on our side." The new human fleet, led by a commander named Vera, had arrived. And with them, the tide of battle was finally starting to turn in humanity's favor. But even with this unexpected arrival, Elias knew that the fight was far from over. There was still much to be done, and the road ahead would be long and fraught with danger. But for the first time in years, he felt a glimmer of hope. Humanity wasn't defeated yet. As the battle continued, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The war was far from over, but with the arrival of this mysterious new fleet, humanity had a fighting chance. And that was all they needed. The battle raged on, with the unexpected arrival of the mysterious human fleet making all the difference. The enemy, once confident in their superiority, was now facing a force they hadn't anticipated. These new human ships, led by Commander Vera, tore through the alien forces with a precision and firepower that Elias had never seen before. It was as though they had brought the very future of warfare with them. The alien ships, vast and menacing only moments ago, were now being pushed back, retreating before the onslaught of human firepower. Elias watched the unfolding battle from the command deck of his ship, his heart racing with a mixture of disbelief and hope. How had these ships remained hidden for so long? Where had they come from? And why hadn't they joined the fight earlier? These were the questions that gnawed at him, but there was no time for answers now. The battle was still far from won, and they needed every advantage they could get. Commander Vera's voice crackled over the comms, cutting through Elias's thoughts. "Elias, we need to coordinate. The enemy is regrouping, and we can't let them re-establish their position. We must strike while they're disoriented." Elias nodded, his mind sharp despite the adrenaline surging through his veins. "Understood. We'll push forward, but we have to be careful. We don't know the full extent of their forces. They could have reinforcements on the way." "We don't have time for caution," Vera replied. "We take the fight to them now or risk losing the advantage we've gained." He didn't need any more convincing. Elias turned to his tactical officer, Lieutenant Mora. "Prepare the fleet for a full assault. We'll use our remaining ships to draw their attention while Commander Vera's fleet makes the final push. But we need to act fast." Mora quickly set to work, coordinating with the other ships in the fleet. The next few minutes would decide everything. If they didn't capitalize on this moment, they could lose everything. The small human fleet, now reinforced by the new ships, moved toward the alien lines, ready for the next phase of the fight. The alien ships, still reeling from the surprise attack, were attempting to regroup. Their larger warships tried to establish a new formation, but the human fleet wouldn't give them the time. The first wave of human ships, led by Elias, moved in, drawing fire from the enemy as the rest of the fleet prepared to flank them. As the enemy focused on the smaller ships, Vera's advanced fleet moved in from the rear, striking with deadly force. The battle escalated quickly, with every ship fighting for survival. Elias's ship, the Orion, dodged incoming blasts, returning fire with everything it had. The crew on board worked in perfect sync, their experience and determination allowing them to keep up with the onslaught. It felt as though every moment was a gamble, each decision a matter of life and death. Through the chaos, Elias saw it, an opening. One of the enemy warships had been hit hard by the combined firepower of Vera's ships and was now drifting aimlessly. The alien fleet's line was weakening, but Elias knew this wouldn't last long. The remaining ships were regrouping, and the new human fleet, though powerful, was outnumbered. They couldn't afford to lose their momentum. "Vera, we've got an opportunity," Elias said, urgency in his voice. "The enemy's flagships are off balance. We can destroy them if we hit them now." "I see it," Vera responded without hesitation. "All ships target their flagships. We end this now." The human fleet focused their fire on the alien command ships, aiming for their weak spots. The alien ships fought back fiercely, but they were no match for the concentrated power of humanity's advanced fleet. One by one, the alien warships began to fall. Their shields shattered, their engines crippled, and their weapons silenced. It was a chaotic, explosive clash of forces, human ingenuity versus alien supremacy, but humanity was winning. Elias watched as Vera's fleet pressed forward, each ship making its mark. The aliens, despite their technological superiority, were being overwhelmed. Then, a new problem arose. One of the larger alien ships, a behemoth of unknown design, moved into position to intercept the human fleet. It was unlike anything the humans had faced before. Its size was monstrous, its weaponry devastating, and it seemed impervious to everything the human ships threw at it. "This isn't just a warship," Elias muttered, eyes narrowing as he analyzed the ship's structure. "It's a battleship-class vessel. We can't take it down with conventional weapons." Vera's voice came through the comms again, calm and calculated. "We didn't come this far to fail now. We need a strategy." Elias quickly studied the schematics of the ship, his mind racing. He knew they couldn't match the battleship's firepower, but there was one thing he had learned throughout the years of fighting. Every ship, no matter how advanced, had a weakness. If they could find that weakness, they could destroy it. "Lieutenant Mora, do you have any intel on its blind spots?" Elias asked, trying to remain calm despite the mounting pressure. Mora didn't hesitate. "Yes, Commander. It has one vulnerability in its rear exhaust port. If we hit it with enough force, we could cause a chain reaction that could disable its power systems." Elias's heart raced. It was a long shot, but it was the only shot they had. "All right, we'll need to get close. Prepare the fleet for a high-risk maneuver. We'll use the remaining ships as decoys and flank it from the rear. Once we have a clear shot, we take it down together." It was a dangerous plan, but there was no other option. The human fleet moved into position, drawing the enemy's fire as they maneuvered toward the battleship's weak spot. The alien ship unleashed a barrage of energy blasts, carrying into the human fleet. But the humans held their ground, using their speed and agility to avoid the worst of the fire. As they closed the distance, Elias felt the weight of the moment. This was the chance to end it all, to destroy the alien threat once and for all. But they had to get it right. There was no room for error. "On my mark," Elias said, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around him. 3, 2, 1, now. The human ships launched a final, coordinated strike. The remaining fleet fired their weapons, while Elias's ship, the Orion, made a direct approach toward the battleship's exhaust port. The energy blasts from the enemy grew fiercer, but Elias didn't flinch. They had to reach the target. With a final burst of speed, the Orion closed the gap. The weapons fired, hitting the vulnerable spot with pinpoint accuracy. The impact was immediate. A massive explosion ripped through the back of the alien battleship. The shockwave rocked the entire battlefield, sending the remaining alien ships into disarray. For a moment, the galaxy seemed to fall silent. The massive alien battleship, crippled by the strike, began to drift, its systems failing. The remaining enemy forces, without their flagship to lead them, were thrown into chaos. The human fleet seized the opportunity, launching their final assault. One by one, the alien ships fell. The tide of the battle had turned. Elias couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief as he watched the alien fleet crumble before them. They had done it. Against all odds, humanity had managed to pull off the impossible. But as the smoke cleared and the last of the alien ships were destroyed, Elias knew this was only the beginning. The war was far from over. Humanity had struck a decisive blow, but the real fight for survival had only just begun. "Commander," Mora's voice broke through his thoughts. "The alien fleet is in full retreat. We've won." Elias nodded, though he couldn't shake the feeling that their victory had come at a price. The battle was won, but the war would continue. With a final glance at the shattered enemy ships, he spoke into the comms. "We've won today, but this is just the beginning. Humanity is back in the fight." And with that, Elias knew that no matter what came next, humanity would never give up. They would fight, and they would win. The alien fleet, though severely crippled, was not completely broken. The mysterious new human ships, their weapons relentless and deadly, had turned the tide. But the battle was far from over. As Elias surveyed the wreckage of the once mighty alien ships, a deep tension settled in his chest. There was no denying it. Humanity had gained an unexpected advantage, but they still faced an unknown enemy whose will to fight had not been diminished. What if this was merely the beginning of something much worse? "Commander, we're receiving a transmission," Lieutenant Mora called out, snapping Elias from his thoughts. She adjusted the comms frequency, and an unfamiliar voice crackled over the line. "This is Captain Ilara of the Renegade Fleet. We're here to help, but we need to talk." Elias's eyes narrowed. He had never heard of the Renegade Fleet before. Vera's fleet had been a game-changer, but now there were new players in the field, and they had their own agenda. "Put her through," Elias ordered. The screen flickered as the image of Captain Ilara appeared. She was a tall woman, her expression stern but not unkind, with a noticeable scar running down the left side of her face. Her uniform looked different, more tactical than the standard fleet issue. "Elias, it's good to see you still alive," Captain Ilara said, her voice steady. "We've been tracking the alien movements for a while, but we've been operating under the radar. Now, we're here to offer our support." Elias studied her closely. "The Renegade Fleet," he repeated, his voice cautious. "Who are you, and why haven't we heard of you before?" Ilara's lips tightened as if preparing to reveal something heavy. "We've been working outside the system. After the major fleets fell, we formed a coalition of human survivors. Not all of us believe in the conventional strategies of the established command. Some of us have taken a more aggressive approach to fighting back against the aliens. The war, it's not what they tell you it is. There's more at play here, more than you or I even understand. The aliens, they aren't just trying to conquer. They're after something much bigger. And we've been trying to stop them from getting it." Elias felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "Something bigger? What are you talking about?" Ilara hesitated, glancing off to the side before returning her gaze to the screen. "The aliens are after humanity's genetic code. They want to control it, use it to breed a new kind of soldier, one that can take down your kind for good. And if we don't stop them, They'll have access to the very essence of our strength. That's why we've been laying low, staying under the radar. We needed time to gather resources. Now, with this victory, we can move forward and make a stand." The revelation hit Elias like a thunderclap. His mind raced, trying to piece together what Ilara was saying. Genetic code. You're saying they want to turn us into weapons? Are you sure about this? Ilara's eyes darkened. We've been tracking their research. There's no mistaking it. They've already started experimenting with our DNA, using their technology to alter it, to make something different. Something that doesn't even resemble the humans we know anymore. Elias was quiet for a moment, absorbing the weight of her words. The aliens hadn't just been trying to defeat humanity. They had been trying to destroy what made humanity human in the first place. "We can't let that happen," Elias muttered. "We have to stop them." Ilara nodded. "That's why I've come to you. Together, we can strike at the heart of their operation. We know where they're hiding the genetic research facility. If we can take that out, we'll cripple their ability to create these abominations. But we have to move fast. They know we're coming." Elias turned to his crew, feeling the burden of leadership heavier than ever. "How many ships do you have?" he asked, turning back to Ilara. "Enough to make a difference, if you're willing to fight with us. But this isn't going to be an easy battle. The facility is on a planet that's heavily guarded. If we strike without proper planning, we could lose everything." A cold chill settled over the bridge as Elias considered the stakes. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a battle for humanity's very essence. The thought of the aliens manipulating their genetic code, turning their own strength against them, was horrifying. The war had taken a personal turn for him, and he knew it was now or never. "We don't have much time," Elias said, standing up from his command chair. "If we don't act now, they'll finish their experiments, and we'll lose any hope of fighting back." He glanced around at the crew, each of them resolute in their determination. This wasn't just about saving their species anymore. This was about saving what made humanity who they were, what made them different from their enemies. "We'll join you, Ilara," Elias said, his voice firm. "But we'll need to work together if we're going to take this facility down. We'll need to divide our forces, use stealth and precision. This can't be another head-on assault. We need to cripple them before they can even react." Ilara's face softened slightly, her demeanor shifting from cold calculation to respect. "Good. We'll make a plan and move quickly. The aliens have never been more vulnerable than they are now. If we strike fast, we can end this nightmare." Elias couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope, though it was faint. The plan ahead was risky, and the stakes were higher than ever. But now, with the renegade fleet at his side, humanity had a fighting chance. "We have one shot at this," Elias said, turning back to his crew. "Let's make it count." The preparations were swift, as the combined human fleets set course for the alien stronghold. The atmosphere on board Elias's ship was tense but determined. Each person knew that the coming mission would be the most dangerous of their lives, and yet there was a sense of unity among them, a shared understanding that they were no longer fighting for survival alone, but for the very future of humanity. As the fleet accelerated toward the planet's coordinates, Elias stood on the bridge, his gaze fixed on the vastness of space outside. The battle for the galaxy had been long and brutal, but they had one thing the aliens didn't: the will to fight, to protect their home, their people, and their future. And with that, the human fleet surged forward into the heart of the alien empire. The war for humanity's survival had entered its most critical phase, and nothing would stop them now. The final chapter of this battle had begun. The journey toward the alien stronghold was a tense one. The fleet, now bolstered by the unexpected arrival of the renegade fleet, had been meticulously preparing for the assault on the enemy's genetic research facility. But despite the initial victories, the shadow of doubt loomed over Elias and his crew. They were heading into unknown territory, facing an enemy that had shown itself to be far more cunning and dangerous than they had anticipated. As the human ships moved closer to the planet's atmosphere, the quiet hum of engines and the soft beeping of various instruments filled the command deck. Elias stood at the center of the room, staring at the holographic display that outlined the alien facility's location. It was heavily fortified, surrounded by massive defensive systems that would make a direct assault nearly impossible. The key to success would be stealth, precision, and an overwhelming sense of urgency. If they waited too long, the aliens would be ready, and any hope of striking would be lost. "Commander," Lieutenant Mora's voice broke through his thoughts. "We're entering the planet's gravity well. Our stealth systems are active, but we'll need to stay under the radar if we're going to reach the facility undetected." "Understood," Elias replied, his eyes never leaving the map. "Keep our fleet spread out. No one makes a move until we have eyes on the target." The fleet moved in formation, cautiously avoiding the scanners and patrols that circled the planet. The human ships were small and agile, their stealth technology allowing them to slip past enemy sensors. But the aliens weren't idiots. They would be expecting a covert strike. Every moment that passed brought them closer to the heart of enemy territory. And the risks of discovery grew with every mile. Captain Ilara's voice crackled over the comms. "We're approaching the facility. It's heavily guarded. Expect heavy resistance once we breach the outer perimeter. We have to hit them fast and hard." Elias nodded. "We'll breach the outer defenses with our decoys. We're counting on the element of surprise to disorient them. Once they're distracted, we move in with the main force." As they neared the facility, the tension in the air was palpable. The stakes had never been higher. This wasn't just a mission to strike a blow against the aliens. It was a mission to destroy their ability to create new weapons, new soldiers. If they failed, humanity would be at the mercy of an enemy that could manipulate their very biology. Elias watched as the first wave of human ships, the decoys, moved into position. Their mission was clear: draw fire, disrupt enemy defenses, and provide the main assault force with a chance to infiltrate the facility. Every detail had been planned down to the last second, but nothing in war was ever certain. There were too many unknowns, too many variables that could go wrong. "All decoy ships, move out," Elias ordered, his voice firm. The decoy ships, smaller, less heavily armed than the main fleet, sped toward the facility, drawing the attention of the alien defenses. Energy blasts erupted from the massive towers that surrounded the facility as the decoys were met with overwhelming force. The alien ships and defenses focused all their energy on neutralizing the decoys, allowing the larger, more advanced human ships to slip through the chaos unnoticed. Elias's heart pounded as his fleet moved into position, their stealth technology cloaking them from enemy sensors. The plan was working, but it was a delicate dance. The longer they stayed hidden, the more time the aliens had to react. They needed to move quickly, decisively. "We're in," Commander Vira's voice came over the comms. "We've infiltrated the perimeter. We'll need 5 minutes before we can get to the core of the facility." Elias's mind raced. 5 minutes was a lifetime in battle. They had to take the facility's heart and destroy the research before the aliens could launch a counterattack. "Understood. Lieutenant Mora, keep the fleet on high alert. If anything goes wrong, we're pulling back immediately." Mora's voice was steady. "Aye, Commander." Time seemed to stretch on endlessly as Elias and his crew waited. They could hear the sounds of battle in the distance. Explosions, the hum of energy shields, the blasts of weapons fire. The decoys were holding off the aliens, but they wouldn't last forever. Then, the silence was broken. A massive explosion echoed through the comms, followed by Vira's urgent voice. "Commander, we've hit the central core. The research facility is compromised. We need to get out, now." Elias felt his stomach drop. The aliens were already regrouping, and the facility was about to become a war zone. It was now or never. "All ships, move in," Elias ordered, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. We need to cover Vira's retreat and extract the team. Full speed ahead. The human fleet surged forward, weapons blazing. The once stealthy approach had turned into a chaotic scramble. The alien defenses, now aware of the attack, were beginning to fire on all fronts. The facility, a sprawling complex of metal and energy, erupted into fireballs as explosions rocked its walls. As Elias and his crew moved through the firefight, they could see the glowing core of the alien facility, the place where their worst fears had been realized. The genetic research that the aliens had been conducting. It wasn't just about controlling humanity's genetic code. It was about creating an entirely new species, one that could overpower humanity and bend it to the aliens' will. We've got it. Vira's voice came over the comms. The facility's core has been destroyed. The research data is gone. Elias let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Good work, Vira. Now get out of there. We've got you covered. The retreat was just as chaotic as the assault. Explosions filled the air as the human ships fought their way back to the rendezvous point, their weapons unleashing everything they had in a desperate bid to escape the alien reinforcements that were now pouring into the area. Elias's ship, the Orion, weaved between blasts, its crew working together like a well-oiled machine, each person knowing their role. It wasn't until they reached the safety of deep space that the battle finally began to quiet. The alien forces had been thrown into disarray. Their research facility had been destroyed, their operations crippled. Humanity had dealt a blow that they hadn't expected. But despite their victory, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that the war was far from over. The aliens wouldn't let this defeat go unanswered. The next battle was already on the horizon, and this time, humanity would have to be ready for anything. We've done it, Morris said, her voice filled with relief. The research is gone. We've won a major victory. Elias looked out into the vastness of space, the stars flickering as if to remind him that the fight wasn't over. Yes, but the war's not finished. We've won today, but tomorrow will bring a new challenge. We'll be ready. Humanity will always fight. We'll never stop. With that, Elias and his crew set course for the unknown, ready to face whatever came next. The war for humanity's future was far from over, but with each victory, they were one step closer to taking back what was theirs. The next battle would come, and humanity would be ready.